Greetings, philosophers. Today we're stepping into the mind of Friedrich Nietzsche, that fiery 19th century philosopher with a moustache as bold as his ideas, to ask, what would he make of narcissistic personality disorder? It's a juicy topic, blending psychology, culture and philosophy. So let's get right to it. Nietzsche's no stranger to bold personalities. His whole project was about individuals breaking free from the herd, embracing their will to power, and creating their own meaning in a world he famously declared had lost its God. But would he look at narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, as the psychologists call it, and see a twisted version of his ideal Übermensch, or something else entirely? Let's unpack this with Nietzsche's lens, but don't worry, we'll keep it grounded for the real world. First, let's set the stage. Narcissistic personality disorder is a clinical condition marked by an inflated sense of self-importance, a deep need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. People with NPD might charm you at first, but behind the charisma often lies manipulation, entitlement, and a fragile ego that cracks under criticism. Sounds intense, right? Now, Nietzsche wasn't a psychologist, but he was obsessed with the human psyche, how we chase power, meaning and identity. So, what would he say about this? Nietzsche's big idea was the will to power. He thought life at its core is about striving, to create, to overcome, to shape the world in your image. For him, the greatest individuals, the ones he called the Übermensch or overmen, were those who could harness this drive, not just to dominate others, but to master themselves and craft something extraordinary. Think of an artist pouring their soul into a masterpiece, or a visionary reshaping society. That's the Nietzschean ideal: bold, creative, self-overcoming. Now, at first glance, someone with NPD might seem like a Nietzschean hero. They've got confidence, swagger, a knack for standing out. They don't follow the crowd. They demand the crowd follows them. But here's where it gets messy. Nietzsche wasn't about empty ego. He despised what he called slave morality, where people cling to resentment, weakness, or cheap validation to feel important. The narcissist's need for constant admiration, their obsession with being seen as superior, Nietzsche would likely call that pathetic. It's not power, it's insecurity dressed up as power. Let's imagine Nietzsche sitting in a coffee shop, observing someone with NPD. Picture this: they're loud, charming the room, but fishing for compliments, quick to rage when ignored. Nietzsche might lean back, sip his espresso, and mutter something like, "This is no Übermensch. This is a child, enslaved to the gaze of others." For him, true strength comes from within, from creating your own values, not from needing a mirror held up by everyone else. The narcissist's fragility, crumbling at criticism or rejection, would strike him as the opposite of self-mastery. But let's dig deeper, because Nietzsche's not just about slamming people. He was a cultural diagnostician, always asking why certain traits emerge in a society. If he were alive today, scrolling through social media or watching reality TV, he'd probably see NPD everywhere, not just in diagnosed cases, but in the culture itself. We live in an age of selfies, personal brands, and endless likes. Nietzsche might argue we've built a world that rewards narcissistic tendencies, where everyone's chasing their 15 minutes of fame. He'd call this a symptom of what he termed nihilism, the collapse of deeper meaning, leaving us scrambling for shallow validation. Here's where Nietzsche gets spicy. He'd probably say our obsession with diagnosing NPD is itself a problem. Why? Because labeling someone a narcissist can be a way to dismiss them, to box them up, and avoid the harder question: what in our culture breeds this behaviour? Nietzsche wasn't big on pity or victimhood. He'd challenge us to look at ourselves. Are we all in some way complicit in creating a world where people feel they need to be larger than life to matter? Think about it. We celebrate the loudest voices, the biggest egos, the influencers with the most followers. Nietzsche might say, we're all playing the narcissist's game, just with less flair. Now, don't get me wrong, Nietzsche wouldn't excuse harmful behavior. Someone with NPD can wreak havoc, manipulating and hurting others to prop up their ego. He'd have no patience for that. His Übermensch isn't a bully, they're a creator. Someone who builds something lasting, not someone who tears others down to feel tall. But he'd also warn against turning the narcissist into a monster. For Nietzsche, everyone's a mix of light and shadow. The same drive that fuels a narcissist's grandiosity could, in theory, be channeled into something great, if they could overcome their need for external validation. This is where Nietzsche's idea of self-overcoming comes in. He believed the greatest battle is within. Could someone with NPD, in a Nietzschean sense, overcome their disorder? Maybe. It would mean facing their fragility head-on, dismantling their need for applause and finding a deeper purpose. That's a tall order, but Nietzsche's all about tall orders. He'd probably say therapy's a start, but it's not enough. You've got to wrestle with your demons, create your own meaning, and stop living for the crowd. That's the path to real power, not the cheap thrill of being admired. Let's zoom out. What would Nietzsche make of how we handle NPD today? We diagnose it, we medicate, we talk about toxic people. Nietzsche would probably roll his eyes. He'd argue we're too quick to pathologize what's human. The desire to stand out, to feel special. It's not inherently bad, it's what you do with it. A culture that only offers shallow ways to feel significant, like chasing followers or fame, will churn out more narcissists. Nietzsche's solution? Stop worshipping the herd. Stop chasing likes. Create something real, something that outlives you. As we wrap up, let's bring this home. Nietzsche would look at narcissistic personality disorder and see a challenge, not just for the individual, but for all of us. It's a mirror reflecting our culture's obsession with image over substance. He'd urge us to ditch the need for validation and embrace the harder, messier work of creating our own meaning. That's not just philosophy, that's a call to live boldly, authentically, whether you're wrestling with NPD or just trying to navigate a world that's always asking you to prove yourself. Thanks for joining me today. If this got your gears turning, drop a comment, share your thoughts, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep questioning, keep creating, and don't let the herd tell you who you are.